Hi everyone, Ben here, and I know I should be grateful that iRacing has a structured content release plan and regularly brings new content to the sim. Players of AMS2, Race Room and other sims would love to have that. And I am grateful, but it's also beginning to drive me mad. There is seemingly no rhyme or reason to what they release, and the service is becoming more confusing with each passing season. Worst of all, content drops often actively cannibalize one another. Let me show you what I mean. I don't utilise other disciplines of racing on the service, so road racing is going to be the focus of this video. Across the last 18 months, iRacing has released just under 20 new road racing cars and 9 new road racing tracks, alongside some updates to existing circuits. And that's before we count the arrival of new cars and tracks in the Season 2 2023 content drop, which appears to include the F1600, the Renault Clio Cup car and Jerez. The problem here lies in what cars and tracks have arrived for road racing and how they're utilised. Let's take the introduction of the TCR series. It was great to see this class fleshed out with the arrival of Honda and Hyundai joining Audi, and the arrival of traditional TCR track Knock Hill. These things coming together made perfect sense, and this class of racing can be phenomenal fun online. And initially at least, grids were packed. But for 9 months now we've seen no additional TCR focused content, and instead we've seen the introduction of other new low speed entry level cup cars, including additional front wheel drive cars, one of which is free. Alongside this, schedules have been adjusted so that the TCR class essentially competes with the GT4 class. So not only does it appear that there's no forward plan for completing the Michelin pilot grid of TCR cars or other TCR tracks, the class itself is being squeezed out in the service, and grid sizes have dropped accordingly. Other new content like the Brazilian stock cars fared much worse, failing to find an audience and crashing hard on arrival, and despite having more free tracks included in their schedule, they've never really recovered. Perhaps most bizarrely, we now have an incredible glut of entry-level and junior Formula cars on the service. In the last 18 months alone, we've seen the Formula V, the F1600 and the F4 car arrive, meaning we now have 9 separate low-powered Formula cars competing for players. Sure, there are big differences between the V and the Formula Renault 3.5, and iRacing recently rebranded the Formula series to give a clearer sense of progression between the different classes. But even accepting these points, it makes no sense to me to have such a number of competing classes going up against one another. Content either needs to be rotated or retired. Now, I know that licensing together with car and track modelling is a complicated and expensive business, so I get that a perfect release schedule would likely result in content being held back or perhaps even never arriving. I can totally get over things being a bit disjointed, but what concerns me is the service we're left with afterwards. If new content doesn't attract a player base to get multiple splits of decent sized grids, it might very well have nothing to do with the quality or the appeal of those cars, and much more to do with how crowded or confusing that kind of racing now is on iRacing. And given each new car and track is expensive, if you can't have confidence it's going to be supported by future drops, or worse, that it won't be actively undermined, why would you buy it? The truth is, iRacing's license and class system has grown into a sprawling behemoth. Sooner or later it will need to be consolidated. In my opinion, it would benefit massively in the meantime from a more coherent release plan that focuses more on introducing new tracks and eligible cars to existing series, not creating new and similar ones. But in this bewildering context, if you're confused about how to get the best value for money on iRacing in 2023, check out this brand new buyer's guide.